In this video, I'll show you the simplest way to connect to Hygraph from NuxtJS without a starter kit. So this is just clean code connecting and that's it. This is the CMS Maverick. Alright, let's get into it. In the browser you can see this is our project and we have 3 pages and each page has a title, a slug and a little rich text that we get as text because we didn't really use much HTML. Keeping it simple here, right? And this actually looks like this. So I've built a homepage and a list of these projects or a list of these pages. And when you go in, you can see there's our page. You can go back. And so essentially what we've created now is just a simple homepage with a list of 2 pages which become dynamic pages, right? So there's like a proper page with a slug and everything. Alright, so let's go into the code and have a look at how this works. So in Nux, this is a clean install of Nux 3.11. And so in here we have 2 modules. We have Nuxt Tailwind, just to make things easier with styling. And then there's the Nuxt GraphQL client. And the Nuxt GraphQL client connects to Hygraph and allows you to make queries to it. And then it helps you with a whole bunch of extra functionality, so that becomes super easy. And so to be able to make this GraphQL client work, we need an environment variable that is called GQL host, and that's a URL. And that URL you can find here. So you go to your project settings and then endpoint and you grab the high perform endpoint. Make sure you have permissions to actually have a look at that API with that URL. So you can just click the button, set up defaults, it all works. All right, so now that we have that URL, what you can do, and that's the magic of this lovely module, you can create a queries folder and inside add your queries. So like this is a query to get all the pages from that API endpoint. And I've also made a query to get just one page. And then there's a where. So where slug, we grab the content. And so the ease of use of this thing is the following. So you have these queries and then when you do npm run dev, it actually goes to Hygraph, understands the schema of your GraphQL and creates you some functions. So when we now go to the index page here, the only thing I have to do is await a GraphQL pages function. You see pages here, when we go to our query, that's also called pages. And so it helps you to actually just do the query for you. There's nothing else you have to do. You get a property with all the pages inside, you loop over them and you link to them. That's it. And so now when you want to see one specific page as a dynamic URL in Nuxt, you can make a page folder. And then here, when you have the 2 square brackets around the word slug, that becomes the variable for your dynamic slug. And so to get that, you can actually do use route. And in the route, you have all the parameters of the URL. And then you get the slug from that. That's the naming that you gave here, which is essentially this. And of course, this is the slug identifier inside the CMS. Right? So we have the content, and then here is our slug. So we have that here as well. And so the only thing you have to do is you get a GraphQL page function by this lovely module, page. You see this where wants a slug string. Well, we have that here. The slug is whatever we got from the parameters in the URL. And now it just gives you your page and you can just render it as you want. And there you have it. This is the simplest way to get stuff out of Hygraph into Nuxt. Because as you can see, we don't need an SDK because it's GraphQL that makes this thing so easy to use. So if you have any questions, go to slack.hygraph.com and join our community so we can talk about this. And there's a link in the description below so you can actually clone this code, but also the starter repository in Hygraph.